Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into gold, especially its recent performance, all inspired by that YouTube video you sent. Really got me thinking.
Yeah, there were some intriguing points in there. It's wild how much gold has been outperforming, even compared to those big tech companies.
Right, it jumped by something like, what was it, 65% in the past 2 years?
Yeah.
More than double Apple's growth, I think the video said.
65%, that's right on the money. Almost triple Google's gains in the same time frame. Pretty impressive for something some folks see as, well, a bit old-fashioned.
It is kind of counterintuitive. It's not like Apple churning out iPhones or whatever. Gold doesn't do anything, really.
That's the paradox of it. It's what we call a non-cash producing asset. Aside from a few industrial uses, a gold bar just kind of sits there, but its value, skyrocketing, really shows how much investor sentiment matters.
So it's more about what it represents than actual use. Like that emergency cash stash that feels safer than stocks when things get rocky.
You hit the nail on the head. It's considered a safe haven, especially with all the economic uncertainty going around these days. That was a key point in the video, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. But why now? What's causing this sudden gold rush everyone's talking about?
Well, the video called it, what was it? A perfect storm of different things coming together right now. They're all pushing up the demand for gold, which obviously impacts the price too.
Yeah, I'm with you. So tell me, what are those factors fueling this gold rush?
Okay, number one, its role as a hedge against inflation. Everyone's talking about inflation these days, and for good reason.
Right. Because if inflation goes up, my money buys me less stuff. Like suddenly my morning coffee costs $5 instead of 4.
Exactly. Your money loses its purchasing power. But historically, gold has held its value really well, even when currencies, like the US dollar, take a hit from inflation. Remember that example from the video? The investor who converted $100,000 to gold right when the pandemic started?
Oh, yeah. And they ended up doing really well, even though inflation was a huge problem back then.
Right. Their gold investment basically acted like a shield against inflation, protecting their money in a way that holding on to just cash wouldn't have.
Makes sense. So what's the next factor?
All right, this one's a bit more, how to put it, geopolitical. It's about the diversification of central banks' reserves.
Okay, I think I remember this from the video. We're talking about countries holding less of their reserves in US dollars and more in gold.
Bingo. For a long time, the US dollar has been the top dog, the world's dominant reserve currency. But we're seeing a shift. Countries like China and Russia, they're actively trying to depend less on the dollar.
And those charts in the video really showed how much gold they've been adding to their reserves. Kind of mind-blowing.
It's a power move, and it's happened before throughout history. When those big players make moves like that, the whole market feels the impact. And in this case, it's giving gold another boost.
Okay, that's two factors. What's the third one that's feeding into this gold rush?
Third one is all about what's happening here in the US, shifting monetary policy. Basically, the decisions the Federal Reserve makes on interest rates.
All right, this is where I always need things broken down a bit. What do interest rates have to do with the price of gold?
It's all about opportunity cost, really. Think of it like this. When interest rates are high, you can make, a decent return just by keeping your money in something pretty safe, like a government bond. It's like getting paid interest just for, holding on to that IOU.
Okay, so higher interest rates mean a better return on bonds. Gotcha. But how does gold fit into all of this?
Well, gold doesn't pay interest. It just exists, right? So when those interest rates go down, bonds become less attractive because the payout, what you get from it, shrinks.
Yeah.
And suddenly that shiny rock that wasn't doing much doesn't seem so boring anymore.
So it's not that gold itself gets more appealing, it's more like those other options just become less so.
Exactly. And there's another layer to this. When the Fed lowers interest rates, it can sometimes weaken the US dollar and a weaker dollar. That makes gold cheaper for people buying it with other currencies.
It's like a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Lower interest rates make gold more attractive on its own, but then they might also weaken the dollar, which makes gold cheaper for other countries, and then that increases demand even more. Wow, who knew economics was so, interconnected? But let's bring this back down to earth, back to you. What does all of this mean for your own money, your own financial decisions?
The million-dollar question. And honestly, there's no crystal ball here. But understanding these factors, that's what can help you make smarter choices.
Like deciding if you should add a little gold to your own investment mix.
Exactly. I mean, based on everything we've talked about today, there's a good argument to be made that gold, it could keep rising. But you've got to balance that against, how much risk you're comfortable with, your own financial goals.
Not all investment advice is one size fits all, right?
Absolutely not. Think about what you have in your portfolio right now. Do you have things like those bonds we talked about that could be negatively affected by inflation going up or the dollar getting weaker? If you do, well, gold might be a good way to protect yourself.
Finding that balance, that's the key.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This deep dive has hopefully given you a good starting point to think about all of this.
I know I've learned a lot. We hear about gold in the news all the time, prices going up, prices going down, but I'll be honest, I never really understood what was behind all of it.
I'm glad to hear that. It's one thing to know the price of something, but it's a whole other thing to understand what's actually driving it.
Totally agree. It's like the old saying, knowledge is power. And speaking of knowledge, we've got a ton of other resources for you on our website if you want to dive even deeper into all this. Until next time, everyone.